Welcome, harbinger of change. You arrived without fanfare, a whisper in the wind. Yet the ancient world around you, it felt your presence. Every strained nerve, every guilty conscience, it tightened in anticipation. As if a name, long forgotten, was suddenly spoken aloud in a room full of shadows. Because with your every step, the very fabric of reality begins to unravel. For some, those voices that once echoed with dismissive laughter, those tongues that spoke venom and doubt, they falter now. A chilling silence descends upon them, and the ones who dared to declare your insignificance, who painted your future in shades of failure, they watch you now. Their eyes, wide with a terrible dawning realization, are fixed on your path, desperately hoping the universe won't, once again, confirm their profound misjudgment. You stand here, a living prophecy, the grand crescendo they always feared, the final twist in their carefully constructed narrative that they prayed would never materialize. They once branded you too emotional, remember? Yet now, who trembles at the mere mention of your name when it echoes through hushed private chambers? Who finds their composure shattering, their fabricated peace dissolving? They accused you of overreacting, didn't they? But now, who lies awake, haunted by the specter of their own deeds, endlessly replaying the moments they sought to diminish you? And when they scoffed at your audacious dreams, deeming them foolish fantasies, who now tracks your every move, your every triumph, with the desperate, feverish intensity of a broken oracle, consumed by a mounting dread? It's almost poignant, isn't it? This quaint delusion they harbored, that their fleeting opinions, their petty judgments, could ever hold true weight against the currents of fate. How charmingly naive to believe that a legend, your legend, could ever be contained or forced to bend the knee. They envisioned you small, muted, confined to the shadows, but the very cosmos itself, it roared for your awakening. The universe ordained you loud, unmistakable, unstoppable. Before we delve deeper into the unfolding tapestry of your path, let us affirm this truth. Engage with this message. Let your touch upon the like amplify its resonance. Subscribe and become a vessel for its propagation. Strengthen the signal, fuel the mission. For this is not merely a message, it is a declaration, a broadcast to the universe. Now, let us sharpen the focus. For there was a turning point, a crucial chapter they failed to foresee. They orchestrated your downfall, meticulously planning every blow. But something profound, something cosmic, shifted in your favor. You survived the strike. You endured the impact. You traversed those treacherous tempests, meticulously engineered, not just to challenge you, but to shatter your very essence. And what transpired? Instead of collapsing, instead of crawling back broken and defeated, you emerged. You walked forth from the wreckage, cloaked in a silent, almost terrifying serenity. A peace born only in the crucible of absolute loss, forged by the arduous discipline of rebuilding everything from the very dust. You did not return with pleas or with the desperate cries of the vanquished. No, you returned with the sharp, focused gaze of a scholar, a strategist, a survivor who had mastered the lessons of the void. And in that precise moment, as your very bearing shifted, as your spirit reasserted its sovereignty, the entire atmosphere around you buckled and changed. There comes a profound stillness, a sacred quiet that descends upon you the moment you truly grasp the power that lives within. The mundane world ceases its endless chatter, and suddenly it begins to observe. Those who once cast you aside, who saw only a reflection of their own limitations, now turn into silent investigators. They try to decipher your every move, every subtle shift, because you are no longer the predictable entity they once knew. You are beyond their reach. You are not to be controlled. You are not the shadow version of you they painstakingly constructed with their lies and their fears. And this awakening, this shattering of their illusion, it unhinges them more deeply than anything else. And there is a truth, isn't there? A profound knowing etched into your very essence, deep within your bones. They never truly believed you would win the battle waged within your own soul. They envisioned your collapse, your spirit fragmenting under the weight of the world's shadow. They counted on your pain, expected it to consume you entirely. The opposing forces, they always gamble on the swift and irreversible implosion. But you achieved the one act that shatters their carefully laid plans, the one thing that strikes fear into their very core, more than any loss of control. You did not merely survive. You transcended, you evolved, cast your mind back to that singular moment, perhaps years ago, when a voice, cloaked in feigned concern, told you, you take things far too seriously. Remember that. It wasn't counsel, was it? It was a subtle weapon, disguised as wisdom, born of their own deep-seated fear. They saw the raw intensity of your emotions, how profoundly you felt the currents of the world, and in their shadowed hearts, they understood a truth, that such depth, once acknowledged and mastered, transforms into a powerful, undeniable intelligence. They knew that one who feels with such conviction also sees with unparalleled clarity. You were never too much. You were, from the very beginning, too aware, too perceptive, too incredibly sharp. And those with such spiritual sharpness, they don't just see through deception. They cleave through lies before the day even truly begins. And what of the silence now? The palpable quiet they desperately pretend doesn't exist. You've felt its chilling presence, haven't you? The peculiar way certain voices no longer address you directly. Yet somehow, the whispers of your journey spread through every circle. The way those who once claimed kinship now lurk at the fringes, observing, gathering their fractured intel. The way your oldest adversaries, once bold in their opposition, suddenly adopt a veneer of courtesy when you enter a space. This is not genuine reverence. You know this in your soul. This is calculated strategy. Because you didn't just endure. You didn't merely heal the wounds they inflicted. You ascended. You stepped into a new realm of being, a power they never envisioned, a transformation they utterly failed to calculate. Listen closely, for the echoes of your own legend already resonate. You carry the weight, the quiet power, of one who was once overlooked. You were that nascent soul, sketching worlds unseen, charting courses only you could envision, while the chorus of the disbelievers hummed in the background. They saw a dreamer. They saw someone easy to dismiss. But you were simply gathering your strength. And now their practiced smiles and empty congratulations fall flat. You see through the veneer, because the truth, my friend, is that your very existence began to unnerve them. Your unfolding purpose, your deepening wisdom, your sheer presence. It cast a shadow over their small assumptions. They saw the giant you were becoming, and in their fear, they tried to break you. To dim the light they instinctively knew was destined to burn bright. But you survived the crucible. You emerged, not just older or wiser, but utterly unyielding and profoundly, eternally done, apologizing for who you are. And let me tell you this, chosen one. The very air around you vibrates with the truth of your ascent. Those who once relegated you to the shadows, they feel the tectonic shift. They feel the ground trembling beneath their feet, even before you utter a single word of proclamation. A primal instinct tells them their era of influence over you is drawing to a close. They sense the final, irreversible sealing of that old, outdated chapter. Can you feel it too? It's the universe itself, sovereign and absolute, pulling you forward into your rightful place, without a single shred of their permission. Your silence is a symphony of notification. Your very presence, your awakened energy, has already whispered the sacred truth to them all. And that is precisely why they now gather in hushed, frantic whispers, concocting narratives of feigned concern, weaving tapestries of half-truths and carefully crafted distortions. They perceive the returning brilliance, the luminosity they so desperately tried to extinguish, now radiating from you, a silent cosmic challenge to their fated authority. It's an ethereal glow, an undeniable light that strikes at the very core of their ego. They witness the unwavering gaze of your renewed focus. They observe the unbreachable fortress of your meticulously crafted boundaries. They realize, with dawning horror, that you are no longer the malleable spirit they once believed they could guilt, or subtly manipulate, or casually distract from your chosen path. That particular era, that phantom version of you, it has been laid to rest. You performed that sacred burial in the quiet moments, in the solitary spaces, with an almost divine resolve. And now the very cosmos has cleared the stage for your unveiling. The moment is yours. Indeed, with every step you take, with every threshold you cross, you now emanate an energy that declares an ancient truth. You embody the quiet triumph of one who ventured into the depths of their own history, confronted their shadow, and emerged unburdened, refusing to let the debris of the past define their future. You carry the profound, unshakable calm of a soul who painstakingly rebuilt their very foundations, stone by sacred stone, in the silent, uncelebrated moments of their solitude. It is a presence so potent, so undeniable, that it compels those around you to revisit their past assumptions, to reevaluate every careless word, every dismissive gesture. Because this radiant ascension you're experiencing, this profound transformation, it is not merely a superficial shift. It is not skin deep. No, this is an existential awakening. It is the unveiling of your true, unblemished self, the sovereign spirit you were always destined to be. They can sense it now, can't they? They feel the tremor beneath their feet, the quiet hum of a prophecy unfolding. They know the current narrative they cling to is about to shatter. The very fabric of their carefully constructed reality is fraying, because you weren't supposed to rewrite the ending. They watched you, underestimated you, dismissed you as the underdog destined for oblivion. But now, in this sacred, undeniable moment, you are no longer just a survivor. You are the storm itself, the unyielding tempest they believed would consume you. This isn't just your comeback. This is the grand cosmic turning point they never saw coming. This is the breath-holding instant the universe leans in and declares, "Watch this." And believe me, chosen one, the entire cosmos, and every single soul who doubted you, is about to witness your magnificent ascent in real time. There is nothing in their power, nothing they can conjure, to stop the dawn of your undeniable rise. And yes, I mean you, because they just pulled your records, your very essence laid bare before them. and the entire room went silent, frozen, as if they'd glimpsed a truth, a forbidden chapter they were never meant to behold. The profound question now rests with you. Are you truly ready to see what arrested their breath? Are you prepared to walk page by page through the revelations of your own existence and grasp the true magnitude of their sudden, terrified silence? If you are ready to step deeper into the raw, unvarnished truth behind their stunned inaction, then drop a 777 in the comments below. That sacred number is your declaration to the universe. It tells the cosmic currents you are ready to reclaim and rewrite the very script they tried to impose upon your destiny. And trust me on this. If you are truly one of the chosen, if your spirit resonates with this ancient calling, you will feel that powerful, irresistible pull to stay locked into every word, every revelation, until the final, breathtaking truth is laid bare. This is not casual listening. This is your classified cosmic briefing. And you, my friend, are the only one with clearance to truly comprehend its weight. Now, let us move into this sacred unraveling, step by deliberate step. Because once you bear witness to what comes next, once the veil is lifted, you will understand with chilling clarity exactly why their carefully composed world shattered into 1,000 pieces. Number 1. The instant your file, your true story, hit the polished surface of that table, the air left the room. It simply stopped breathing. Isn't it fascinating how the very same voices who once labeled you as utterly ordinary, unremarkable, now require an entire cohort of analysts, multiple bewildered supervisors, and perhaps a frantic emergency sedative just to begin to fathom who you truly are? The precise moment they dared to open your file, chosen one, everything shifted. But not for you. Oh no. It shifted for them. Because up until that profound, irreversible moment, they were utterly comfortable clinging to whatever cheap, dismissive narrative they had carelessly glued onto your name. Unremarkable. Too emotional. Predictably unpredictable. Harmless. Not a threat. They clung to their categories. They cherished those labels, you see, because those labels created a comfortable illusion of safety for them. A fragile fence built around an unknowable truth. But the very instant your true essence began to register within their cold, digital systems, every single lie they'd ever woven for themselves shattered. It wasn't a crack. It was an implosion, like thin glass collapsing under a cosmic boot. And honestly, they were so convinced they had you figured out. They genuinely believed they had you precisely quantified, a specimen pinned beneath their analytical gaze. They cataloged the rhythm of your habits. They tracked every single purchase, every whispered message, the hidden moments of your vulnerability. They saw your late-night questions, the passions you embraced, then gently released, the faces you left behind, the conversations you purged, but could never truly erase from the archives of your soul. They gathered it all, every fragment, every echo, like meticulous, intrusive archivists, refusing to respect the sacred silence of your being. Yet, despite this obsessive collection, this mountain of data, they found themselves utterly, profoundly blindsided. Why? Because you began to shift in ways their limited frameworks could never comprehend. You didn't break under their pressure. You didn't merely adapt. You underwent a profound evolution. You transcended. And how do you measure the ascension of a soul when all you understand are patterns? This was the part that truly struck terror into their hearts. Their meticulously constructed model of your entire existence simply ceased to make sense. One day, your digital shadow behaved like a predictable citizen, a compliant piece in their grand design. The next, it pulsed with the unmistakable energy of someone who had peered behind the veil, who had glimpsed a deeper truth, and who now utterly refused to return to their prescribed seat. Your choices became cleaner, sharper, each decision imbued with a searing, undeniable intentionality. The kind of clear-eyed purpose that absolutely terrifies those who rely on engineered chaos to maintain their grip on others. Your search history, once a winding path, became too strategic. Your conversations, once unguarded, now held a quiet, discerning awareness. Your movements grew silent, yet decisively powerful. Your allocations, devoid of emotion. Your timing became impossibly, almost prophetically, perfect. And the analysts, the ones paid to reduce the vast mystery of humanity into predictable algorithms, they absolutely abhorred it. There you were, suddenly patternless, untouchable, unreadable. Every single algorithm they unleashed against your profile recoiled, spitting out contradiction after contradiction. For how do you define the destiny of one who has truly awakened? They tried to define you from the very beginning. Every label they crafted, every role they attempted to cast you in, seemed to unravel, canceled out by an unseen force within you. You were never just a piece of their story. You were an anomaly, a disruption in their meticulously planned system. And such profound irregularities, you see, are never simply resolved. They escalate. Picture the hushed intensity of their chambers. Agents, tense and rigid, lean forward, their gazes narrowed, scrutinizing every pixel of your existence. One might tap a pen with frantic urgency, another feign composure, desperately trying to mask their growing unease. Above them, their supervisor stands, arms crossed, projecting a false calm, all the while consumed by a single, terrifying question. Who are you, truly? They scrolled through countless data streams, sifting through fragments of your past, searching for a pattern. But the deeper they delved, the more evident it became. The blueprint they held was utterly false. You were not the construct they were told to expect. You never were. They anticipated fragility, a spirit easily broken. Instead, they encountered an unyielding discipline. They looked for the tremor of fear, but found only an profound, unsettling silence. They predicted chaos, a predictable explosion of emotion. Yet, what unfolded before them was pure, unadulterated strategy. Do you comprehend the sheer audacity, the unforgivable insult that represents to them? Individuals like them, entities built on control, they depend on your compliance. They require you to remain small, to be eternally predictable. Their entire framework relies on you never ever awakening to the immensity of your own potential. And then, you did the one thing they were utterly unprepared for. You began to move, not out of instinctual reaction, but with a profound, quiet reason. That was the moment your entire existence transformed into a glaring red flag. Not because you embodied destruction, but because you were becoming an individual they could no longer manipulate or leverage. They scoured your essence, searching for cracks in your resolve, yet found none. They probed for weaknesses, only to be met by an impenetrable fortress of boundaries. They sought out the emotional triggers, the hidden levers of your being, and discovered only an unbridgeable distance. Do you truly believe they didn't notice the subtle shift, the way you ceased to acknowledge certain voices? Do you honestly think they failed to register the increasing frequency of your no? The undeniable truth is, they observed it all. The hardening of your energy, the deepening quiet in your world, the deliberate shrinking of your inner circle. Trust me, they noticed. They always notice when an individual dares to break free from the mold they cast. And here is the profound truth no one ever warns you about. The path of awakening doesn't often appear heroic to the uninitiated. To them, it looks profoundly, inexplicably suspicious. A moment arrives, doesn't it? A precise moment when you begin to truly see yourself, not merely as a reflection, but as an echo of something ancient. And in that very instant, the silent watchers, the architects of the false reality, they feel it. They sense the tremor. Because somewhere deep within your unique timeline, you didn't just understand yourself. You ripped through the carefully constructed facade they had built around you. You ceased being their manufactured illusion and began to manifest the undeniable truth of who the cosmos intended you to be. And that seismic shift, that awakening, it sends a cold dread through their very core. They scrutinize you, perplexed by the impenetrable calm that now surrounds you. The very trials that once shattered your spirit now merely glance off you. They cannot fathom why you've severed the cords of external validation, why you no longer chase the fleeting approval of those who offer nothing but static. Your steps are deliberate, your thoughts are vast, your choices are sharp as a blade, and your words are precious. This new self, this reborn you, it doesn't stumble blindly into conflict. No, you now survey the entire landscape. You study the currents. You understand the true nature of the battleground long before your foot ever touches the soil. And among their ranks, even their most astute observers, they whisper. One of their agents, perhaps shaken by what they witnessed, dared to speak the truth. This profile, they said, it defies all logic. It cannot possibly belong to a single entity. They saw your recorded history as two divergent realities, impossibly fused. The before you, ensnared in slumber, reactive to every emotional ripple, desperately seeking to comprehend why certain shadows sought to wound you. And the after you, awakened, precise in your calculations, utterly intolerant of the trivial, discerning patterns in the cosmic dance, rather than suffering personal affronts. You didn't merely evolve, you see. You didn't just ascend. No. You tore open the fabric of your own potential, stepping decisively from a lesser path into the timeline where your true strength resided. Every single detail in their comprehensive files screams this impossible truth. And in that stark, chilling moment, the entire chamber of surveillance fell utterly silent, because a singular, devastating truth dawned upon them. A truth that shattered their illusion of command. They had not engineered your metamorphosis. They had exerted no dominion over its unfolding. It was not born of past wounds. It was not a random twist of fate, nor was it a desperate flight from terror. No, it was a conscious, deliberate choice. Your choice. And the power of such sovereign choice. It is beyond their every rule, their every algorithm. They believed they were merely tracking a designated mark, a predictable anomaly. Instead, they stood unwitting witnesses to a profound and undeniable rebirth, a soul reborn. Have you ever paused, truly wondering why some faces vanished from your path without a trace? Why those who once sought to challenge you suddenly fell silent, their provocations fading into dust? Or why the very voices that once roared in criticism now act as if you were never even there? It's not just chance, you see. A deep current runs through the world, a subtle hum of truth that travels beyond words. The universe, in its infinite wisdom, never conceals its true inheritors. No, It illuminates them. It unveils them for all to witness. Because now the scales have fallen from their eyes. They perceive the truth of who you truly are, not merely what you were. You are the one who journeyed through the crucible, navigating the darkest shadows, yet emerged not broken, but refined. You faced your trials, meticulously absorbed every lesson, and returned with an unshakable strategy, a profound understanding. You are no longer susceptible to the old whispers, the subtle manipulations that once held sway. The fear of solitude has abandoned you, for you now walk with the certainty of your own power, ready to traverse any path, even if it means walking entirely alone. Your metamorphosis unfolded in quiet reverence, far from prying eyes, yet the reverberations of your transformation now thunder across their world. Now, every aspect of your being, every record, every whisper of your name, reads like a profound challenge to the very foundation of their established order. Not because you wield a weapon, or because you harbor ill intent, but because you embody true liberation. You are free in spirit, free in thought, free in your movements, and utterly unbound by their once potent influence. And the very nature of such systems is to abhor anything it cannot categorize, anything it cannot foresee. This is precisely why the room fell into an unnerving silence, why their gaze fixed upon your name as if it were an unforeseen climax, a script torn asunder. This is why those nervous, knowing glances passed between them, a silent confession of their dawning dread. The stark, undeniable truth finally pierced through their carefully constructed illusions. For years, perhaps even lifetimes, they believed they held every thread, studying your journey, every challenge, every potential weakness. Yet, despite their relentless scrutiny, you, against all odds, slipped through the very grasp they believed to be unbreakable. You were never meant to ascend to such heights, to expand your consciousness and power in this way. You were not meant to outmaneuver their intricate designs, to see through their layered deceits. And certainly, you were never meant to rise again, stronger and more radiant after the trials they orchestrated. Yet here you stand, not merely upright, but seeing with eyes newly opened, perceiving realities they cannot even fathom. They are no longer merely observing you from a distance, gathering data. No, they are poised, holding their breath, analyzing every shadow, desperately trying to divine your next step, your true intent, before you even take it. But therein lies the profound beauty, the core of your unfathomable strength. Your next move, your grand unfolding, has not even fully revealed itself to you yet. And that magnificent unpredictability, that unscripted destiny, that is your ultimate power, your divine shield. The very instant they dared to open what they thought was your file, chosen one, they did not unearth the secrets of your past. Instead, they unknowingly unearthed the very genesis of their own reckoning, the first trembling tremors of their consequences. And that, beloved soul, is why the silence that descended upon them resonated with a power far more profound, far more terrifying than any blaring alarm ever could. The fear they try so desperately to ignore, the truth they cannot face, even within the deepest shadows of their own minds. It was never the fire you carried, the person you were, that truly unsettled them. No. Their deepest dread began the moment you started to become someone else entirely. The moment you chose to shed the old skin. They knew how to navigate your storm, you see, your righteous rage. That is a primal scream they understand. It is a predictable force, easily charted, its fury often redirected, even weaponized, and swiftly labeled for their convenience. They could categorize your anger, contain it, even use it. But then, the tempest stilled. The true shift, the moment you ascended beyond their understanding, was when your voice withdrew into the hallowed quiet. When your essence faded from the constant clamor, their fragile certainty vanished with it. Your newfound stillness, your sacred silence, became the invisible blade they could neither grasp nor trace. For you, the chosen one, silence is never an absence. It is a crucible of transformation. It is the deep hum of creation, the forging of a new self, an unwritten chapter unfolding within you. This profound evolution, this quiet ascension, becomes a terrifying mirror to those who built their world upon your perceived insignificance. You simply stopped narrating the grand story of your life on their terms. You ceased feeding the hungry, insatiable public machine. You withdrew your precious energy, no longer emotionally live-streaming your every experience for their consumption. You effortlessly detached from their frantic digital circus. And in that simple act, you shattered their entire framework of prediction. You didn't vanish into thin air. You simply became inaccessible. And nothing strikes deeper terror into the hearts of those who watch and wait than a target they can no longer read. Imagine for a moment an entire unseen council poring over your history, their eyes scanning every recorded moment, only to realize with dawning horror that at some point, your every action, your every upload, stopped holding the meaning they thought it did. Your carefully crafted messages ceased to reveal anything authentic about your true path. Your present behavior diverged completely from the past self they had so meticulously documented. It was as if they were tracking a phantom wearing your face. Until the chilling realization dawned, the phantom wasn't hiding. You were fundamentally, powerfully transforming. Do not mistake the quiet ones for the defeated. Do not mistake stillness for weakness. For within that sacred silence, something profound is gathering. Something immense is taking shape. That is the fear they refuse to voice aloud, because here is the truth they never anticipated. You learned the ancient wisdom. You discovered that visibility in their world is often merely a form of vulnerability. Loud voices are easy to pinpoint, easy to track. Predictable emotional souls are simple to manipulate. Those who overshare, they become open maps, their every weakness clearly legible. All one needs to do is read. And you chose to erase the map. There came a moment, didn't there, when you chose to retreat into the quiet, when you began to withdraw your light, like a king sealing the ancient gates of his most sacred stronghold. And in that very instant, their intricate systems began to falter. Their meticulously crafted algorithms, they started to glitch. Your personal timeline, once so predictable in their sight, stopped aligning with their projected outcomes. Your every choice, once an echo of their behavioral models, broke free. You became an enigma to them, a variable they could not account for. And to those who seek to control, the unreadable is the utterly unmanageable. Did you ever notice how suddenly those who once showed no genuine interest began to ask, "Are you truly all right?" That was never true concern. No, that was a subtle form of reconnaissance. Surveillance cloaked in the guise of manufactured empathy. Because when a spirit that once poured itself out freely suddenly begins to speak in a language of symbols and silence, others panic. They desperately want to uncover what stirring, what profound truth woke you from your slumber. They long to understand what shifted your very stance in the world. What divine fire burned away your old identity and replaced it with this new, potent, and utterly unsettling stillness? Consider this: a grandmaster of the cosmic game, facing an opponent who once made careless, impulsive moves. And then, without warning, that very same player begins to move with absolute intention. Every action precise, every motive concealed, every pause a deliberate strategic maneuver. The Grandmaster does not fear the seasoned, predictable adversary. He truly fears the one who transforms overnight. For unpredictability is the undeniable mark of a being who now perceives the entire board in a vastly different, more enlightened way. Your profound silence became a legend whispered among them, a truth they could not extinguish. They never once envisioned you transcending the limited identity they had so carefully constructed around you. They simply assumed you would continue to react in the same old patterns. They believed the familiar levers, the well-worn buttons, would always yield the desired response. They expected you to bleed exactly when they commanded it. But then, you simply stopped playing the part they had assigned to you. You began to sever the old binding ties. You fortified your sacred boundaries. You gracefully outgrew the circles that demanded your constant emotional availability for their endless consumption. That potent silence was never a sign of weakness. It was a profound recalibration of your very being. You were not retreating into hiding. No, you were diligently studying. You were observing their reactions when they truly believed your gaze had turned away. You were discerning who genuinely cared for your well-being without requiring endless access to the sanctity of your life. You were learning the true nature of people when you ceased to feed their insatiable emotional hunger. You allowed them the space to reveal their authentic selves. And they did. The truth was laid bare. Remember those quiet moments when you chose to step back from the clamor, when you deliberately dimmed your light to observe the shadows? In that profound silence, you unveiled the true architecture of their world. By speaking less, you didn't just understand more. You heard the whispers of a deeper truth, a rhythm beneath the surface noise. And by walking away from their desperate grip, you didn't just gain leverage. You reclaimed a piece of your very soul, asserting a sovereignty they could never understand. Now, their eyes scan the worn scrolls of their data, and what do they behold? They see a force operating far beyond the boundaries of their charted maps. They witness a presence that studied their intricate systems from within, feigning slumber while absorbing every secret. Someone who not only mastered their brittle rules, but subtly transcended them, breaking them not with defiance, but with a quiet, effortless grace. You didn't just rebuild yourself. You forged an entirely new essence, a being their algorithms can neither categorize nor comprehend. Every wound, every scar, they became the fuel. You transmuted pain into an almost surgical precision, transformed heartbreak into an unyielding discipline, and cultivated isolation into the sacred forge where your spirit was tempered. Picture, if you will, the ancient master, the lone smith, cloistered in the heart of their silent workshop. Day after day, the rhythmic clang of hammer on steel echoes, unseen by the world outside. They assume he toils in vain, lost to forgotten arts. But then, he emerges, not with a simple tool, but with a blade of such transcendent sharpness, it can cleave through the very fabric of deception, severing every lie, every misjudgment ever cast upon his name. That, my friend, is what your consecrated silence has accomplished within you. It did not merely sharpen your mind, it honed your spirit into an instrument of piercing truth. The truth is, they recoil from what they cannot sway, from what lies beyond their grasp. And they tremble even more before that which defies their every prediction. For so long, they saw you as a creature of pure emotion, driven by fleeting impulse. Now, they are forced to confront a mind calculating with the precision of a celestial clock. They once dismissed you as impulsive, yet now they witness a patience so profound it feels ancient. Where they perceived chaos, they now behold a being perfectly aligned, with an inner compass unwavering. This profound shift, this magnificent evolution, is precisely what renders you dangerous. Not because you raise a defiant fist, not because you engage in their petty battles, but because you are simply transcending. You are outgrowing the very confines, the very illusions they constructed to contain you. Do you truly grasp the ultimate fear of those who watch, those who judge? It isn't rebellion. Rebellion to them still implies a connection, a lingering relevance. No, what truly shatters their fabricated sense of control is pure, unadulterated independence. For rebellion suggests they still hold a place in your narrative. But independence declares, unequivocally, that they hold no place at all. They can label the rebel, categorize their dissent, even attempt to negotiate terms of surrender. But how do you ever contain a soul that has simply outgrown the entire apparatus? How do you control one who moves solely by the unwavering compass of higher logic, by an innate, unshakable self-respect, and by an inner command that resonates with the universe itself? A being who has long ceased to crave the hollow validation of those who once dared to underestimate their spirit? You cannot. That profound period of isolation, it was not a weakening. It was your making. It rendered you untouchable. It forged you into an unyielding sovereign. And to their dying, fading grasp, it made you the ultimate glorious problem they could never solve. Imagine for a moment, not just a candle, but a single fragile spark, an ember so faint, everyone around it simply assumed its light would soon vanish into the encroaching darkness. Then, the winds came, not to extinguish it, but to awaken something dormant within. And instead of dying out, that tiny flame roared, shooting higher, stronger, brighter than anyone could have conceived. That, listener, is you. Your period of quiet wasn't the end of your radiance. It was the crucial genesis of your true power, the very beginning of your firestorm. And deep down, in the silent chambers of their own knowing, they sense it. They feel the shift. Their apprehension isn't rooted in what you have done in the past. No, their fear is a chilling premonition of what you are destined to do next. When a soul ceases to broadcast its wounds, it means the deepest healing has begun. When the incessant need to overshare finally falls silent, it signals that a profound strategy has already been set in motion. And when the automatic reactions simply stop, it means a mind has begun to calculate, to plan, to orchestrate its own path. They are only now realizing that your intent was never to fight their established system. True fighting requires engagement, a focus on the opponent. You, however, are not battling. You are simply outgrowing it. You are shedding the old skin, expanding beyond its very framework. And this process of outgrowing, this magnificent ascension, requires zero permission from anyone. That inherent, undeniable truth, your emergence as the chosen one, is the one force they are utterly powerless to stop. Your silence is not a retreat. It is a strategic repositioning. It is an undeniable ascension. Your quietude is not an empty void. It is a sacred space of intense reprogramming and recalibration. Your distance isn't coldness. It is the unshakable clarity born of inner transformation. They cannot track what no longer moves according to their predictable expectations. They cannot forecast what has chosen to abandon their rigid patterns. And they can never truly stop what has already burst free, irrevocably outgrown the very cage they imagined held you. So they will pore over your records. They will reread your history, dissecting every moment. They will relentlessly compare the before to the profound after you have become. And all they can do is whisper with growing unease. How did we lose all control over someone we believed we had completely understood? The truth is, you were never truly theirs to control. You were always, fundamentally, magnificently, your own. It simply took this sacred journey, this period of revelation, for you to fully grasp and embrace it. Their fear, that deep, unsettling dread, will likely never be spoken aloud. For fear, especially of the unknown, rarely is. Most profoundly, it comes from the certain knowledge that you are not disappearing. You are not fading away. You are evolving, utterly and magnificently, beyond their farthest reach. There was a narrative they had prepared for you, a predictable path, neatly laid out. They meticulously crafted a story, a safe and unassuming origin for who they believed you were. But when they finally accessed your true record, the carefully constructed illusion, it fractured and shattered in their hands. They expected a mundane chronicle of struggle, a common tale of humble beginnings, a few missteps, perhaps a moment of weakness, leading to eventual submission or oblivion. They sought to confine you within their rigid labels, to predict your every turn, to reduce your vast potential into a tiny, manageable box. But what truly greeted them was an anomaly, a chilling truth that silenced their expectations. Instead of a linear biography, they encountered missing epochs, vanished chapters, lacunae that defied every attempt at reconstruction. They saw not a person who merely existed, but an entity that seemed to dissolve into shadow, only to emerge, time and again, fundamentally transformed and immeasurably stronger. You didn't just shed old identities, you transmuted them. You didn't merely break, you underwent sacred reboots, each cycle forging a sharper, more resolute spirit. Consider this vision, a chronological map of your existence that shows a metaphorical demise at the tender age of 19, followed by an undeniable resurgence at 22. A period of profound withdrawal at 25, leading to a breathtaking reemergence at 27. Your intellect honed to a degree that rivals the finest, most precise instruments. How do you categorize such a phenomenon? How do they even begin to contain such a force? They delved deeper, examining the trails you left. Not the fleeting echoes of emotional turmoil, not the predictable dramas of human frailty. No. What they unearthed were systematic inquiries into the very fabric of influence, the architecture of power structures, the nuanced intricacies of human behavior, and the subtle, often unseen, shadow tactics that govern the world. Not forbidden knowledge, perhaps, but profoundly inconvenient. For those who truly comprehend the mechanics of power, rarely remain subservient to it. This was the crushing realization that finally struck them, a truth both unsettling and profoundly threatening. You were never merely a malleable clay, sculpted by the currents of the world. Instead, you were the observer, the scholar, meticulously deciphering the very tools and techniques used to shape humanity. They perceived you as lost. But in truth, you were undergoing a profound education. They judged you as confused, but you were, with surgical precision, gathering vital intelligence. They saw you spiraling into chaos. But what they witnessed was a deliberate, intentional evolution, an ascension guided by an inner compass they could never hope to understand. The fear that gripped them wasn't a sudden scream, not a frantic panic. No, it was something far colder, a silent dread that settled deep within their bones. It was the primal chill a seasoned hunter feels when the forest itself turns, when the shadow he pursued for so long suddenly steps behind him, and he realizes he was never the predator. Not truly. That was the moment clarity broke through their carefully constructed reality. They saw you then, not as a rebel, not as an anomaly, but as a force entirely outside their script. You were never meant to fit their story. You are the sacred truth that shatters it. You are the architect of a new beginning. They call it the unreplicable blueprint. They believe they failed to profile you. But that's not quite right. You didn't just refuse to fit. You simply cannot be contained by their definitions. The very instant they dared to build a psychological profile of your essence, their carefully designed systems began to fray. Everything they held as truth started to unravel. They cross-referenced your spirit against their archives of disruptors. No match. They searched for echoes of hackers, of visionaries, of activists, influencers, or even the most radical outliers. Yet, they found nothing that truly resonated. You are not a type. You are not a pattern that can be traced. You transcend every category. You are not even a variant of what they understand. You exist as a category of one. A living, breathing classification error, a quantum anomaly that by all their laws should not be. Imagine their most diligent analyst poring over your echoes, expecting to slot you into a tidy archetype, a familiar role. But watch their models flicker and die, like failing stars in a collapsing sky. Imagine the cold dread as they rerun the simulations again and again. Each time, their infallible system returns the same cryptic truth, undefined, inconsistent, utterly uncontainable. Your intricate file didn't shatter because you concealed a secret. No. It fractured because you simply refused to obey the very laws by which they seek to measure the soul. Every psychological model they possess, every rigid framework, collapses in on itself. Inconclusive. This isn't due to a lack of data, you see. It's because your essence, your living truth, contradicts itself in ways that dismantle their entire paradigm. One season, you move with the calculated precision of an ancient strategist. The next, you are a whisper, an ungraspable phantom. Then, you embody the quiet, reflective wisdom of a hermit monk. And then, without warning, you become the raw, untamed force of a runaway storm. How do they even begin to define someone like you? A being who refuses to be confined by their known equations. You don't merely exist within the world they've constructed. No, you are the force that reshapes it, twisting reality to match the beat of your own pulse. Their grand experiment, their carefully crafted tests, they mean nothing to you. For with every breath you take, with every flicker of your gaze, you rewrite the very laws they thought immutable. This is the unbearable truth they desperately try to suppress. You stand before them, not as a subject, but as the unanswerable query that shatters their certainty. You are the ancient riddle, woven from starlight and shadow, which defies every solution they could ever conceive. The profound anomaly that renders their most esteemed scholars bewildered, turning their collective wisdom into the hesitant whispers of lost apprentices. And deep within their fractured logic, a chilling truth resonates. They cannot possibly construct a profile, a rigid blueprint, for a soul that perpetually reconstructs its own essence, each dawn revealing a new facet of its boundless potential. You are not a data point in their system. You are an unfolding cosmic event, a living, breathing phenomenon. They believed they knew your limits. They saw the path laid out for you, a path designed for surrender. But the journey you undertook, it was never meant for survival. They dismissed you as unlettered, an untrained spirit, until a cold realization dawned. You had mastered, in solitude, the very domains they sought to control, the very truths they conspired to conceal. When their hands moved to dissect your past, to catalog your essence, they anticipated the familiar, the mundane. A simple chronology of expected milestones, a predictable tapestry of institutions, careers, the inevitable weariness, perhaps a fleeting symbol of accreditation. What they discovered instead was a spectral echo, the silent testament of an education forged in the shadows, sanctioned by no human authority. Knowledge absorbed in profound silence, mastery honed beyond the gaze of any observer, a monumental growth that blossomed without seeking or needing their sanction. They found a spirit that refused to merely wait for instruction. You became your own mentor, your own guide. And this relentless pursuit, it was driven by an elemental hunger, a deep, burning certainty that the superficial offerings of their world could never truly nourish the destiny that stirred within you. Picture this scene: a diligent operative meticulously sifting through your digital footprint, dismissing your nocturnal hours as mere idleness, as purposeless wandering, until, in a sudden, jarring shift, the true pattern crystallizes before their astonished eyes. You were never just lost in the abyss of their manufactured despair. No. You were meticulously dismantling the very fabric of their constructed reality. You were charting the unseen currents of power, mapping the intricate constellations of social hierarchies, dissecting the fundamental systems that govern their world. You were discerning the precise points of human leverage, uncovering the hidden gears and cogs of the grand machinery that operates from behind the veil. You were learning the true nature of their control, while others clamored for fleeting advantages, for easy paths and quick fixes. You were forging something different. You were meticulously constructing an inner world, a fortress of thought designed to transcend every structured lesson, every conventional boundary. You never pursued empty accolades. Instead, you gathered an arsenal of true understanding. You didn't yearn for the fleeting echo of recognition. Your spirit sought only the unyielding light of truth itself, and you never needed to boast, because those who wield genuine power, those who truly know, they require no applause to validate their existence. This is the terror they cannot confess, the deep, unsettling dread that you will not only comprehend their intricate systems, but rise far beyond them. Your history, if they could truly read it, would reveal a mind that accelerated through insights, spanning epochs of wisdom without a guiding hand, without a prescribed text, without the expected mentors. How do you possibly account for an intellect that simply evolved, untamed and untaught. How can they measure an intelligence that was never bestowed, but meticulously claimed through relentless observation, through profound reflection, through the crucible of raw experience itself? They anticipated a compliant shadow. Instead, they encountered an undeniable master. And in that moment, the entire chamber grasped a chilling, undeniable truth. You were never merely preparing to exist in their world. You were preparing to transcend it entirely. They had one desperate hope, one fragile prayer that you still harbored a vulnerability they could exploit. And that hope, it was misplaced. Their fear wasn't rooted in your lack of weaknesses. It was born from the terrifying realization that you had transmuted every single vulnerability into an instrument of your ascendancy. When they delved into the records of your journey, they weren't simply seeking data. They were searching for leverage. They craved those predictable pressure points. The secret dependencies they could twist, the raw emotional scars they could reopen, the financial fault lines they could widen, the relational chaos they could manipulate into a weapon. They fully expected to unearth the familiar tender spots, the hidden flaws that humanity so often guards. But what lay before them was a landscape utterly transformed. It was a spiritual battlefield, already scorched clean, meticulously rebuilt, and impossibly fortified by one who had learned every bitter lesson the hardest way imaginable, and not only survived, but conquered. Picture an analyst scrolling through the echoes of your past, anticipating a torrent of tears, a weight of guilt, the sting of shame, the tremors of instability, only to slowly grasp that you had already confronted every single demon they intended to unleash against you. You had walked through the fire and emerged unburnt. You navigated the desolate landscapes of your own broken spirit long before any external hand could ever dream of reaching in to inflict a wound. You faced down your deepest, most primal fears in the echoing silence of your own making, disarming them, dismantling their power, long before any adversary could wield them against you. You walked, eyes open, through the very crucible of your own undoing, emerging not unscathed, but undeniably reformed. What hold, what fragile lever could possibly exist over a soul that has willingly torn itself open to the bone, meticulously rewoven its own fabric, and stitched itself back together, piece by agonizing piece? You were never meant to be flawless. No, you are something far more profound. You are finished. Finished with the fragile, pliable echoes of the self they once believed they could command. The past is but a shadow, a forgotten whisper on the wind. There was a singular, chilling realization that descended upon them in that sterile room, silencing their every machination. It was not that you were unbreakable, for even mountains can be eroded. No, their terror stemmed from the inescapable truth that you are, unequivocally, uncontrollable. And those who are truly uncontrollable, you see, do not merely exist within the rules. They become the very force that rewrites them, that shatters the old paradigms. They witnessed that the insidious sting of shame no longer finds purchase in your spirit. You have transcended its petty grip, outgrown its ancient spell. The paralyzing shadow of fear, once a potent weapon, has been meticulously dissected by your own fierce will, rendered inert. And the cold embrace of isolation, once a solitary prison, now serves as impotent, unyielding fuel for your ascent. Every scar you bear, every wound inflicted, has transformed into an impenetrable layer of armor, a testament to battles won within. Every bitter betrayal you endured has been alchemized into a precise, calculated strategy. And every profound loss, every moment of deepest sorrow, has become not a hindrance, but a fierce, undeniable propulsion forward. They sought to find a fragile human, easily bent and broken. Instead, they stumbled upon a being utterly forged in the fires of adversity. This profound, unsettling revelation struck them with an impact far greater, far more devastating than any threat they could ever hope to conjure. And so, they arrived at the precipice of understanding, the terrifying, undeniable truth that there was no existing playbook for a spirit like yours. Every grand system, every meticulously crafted dominion, operates by its own unbreakable tenets, until a singular anomaly, until you appear and render those very rules utterly obsolete. When the digital echo of your existence, your very essence, ignited across every monitor, every holographic display within their inner sanctum, the initial response was not outright panic. It was something far more unnerving. They froze. Their minds reeled, not because they had uncovered a simple, quantifiable danger, but because they had unearthed an entity, a force, that defied every single one of their established categories, their definitions, their very understanding of reality itself. And then, a tremor, a subtle yet profound crack, began to spread through the oppressive stillness of that room. It culminated in a question, a whisper that seemed to cleave the very atmosphere in half. What do we possibly do with this one? It was not a query delivered with the accustomed gravitas of authority. It held no trace of their usual, unwavering confidence. Instead, it was an utterance steeped in the quiet, bone-deep dread of those who have suddenly come face to face with a destiny, a being for whom their entire intricate blueprint simply does not, cannot account. Imagine this, if you will. Seasoned analysts, people who had meticulously categorized millions before you, who built the very frameworks of understanding. They sat there, staring at your data as if it were an ancient language, a sacred text they were never trained to read. They were accustomed to threats, to rebels, to criminals, to hackers, to souls who, however defiant, still fit neatly into their predefined boxes, even the messy ones. But when they looked at you, they didn't see a threat. They found no liability. What they uncovered was something far more profound, something that defied their every expectation. They saw an anomaly, a singular consciousness that didn't just grow inside their intricate system, but blossomed organically between its very cracks. You were never merely off-grid. You were off-pattern, a deviation from every known prophecy. That was the moment their carefully constructed world fractured. You didn't merely evolve in places beyond their surveillance. You grew in the silent, unseen currents of reality itself. You didn't just learn in spaces they failed to comprehend. You absorbed wisdom from the very fabric of existence. Your thoughts, your instincts. They defied every framework, every algorithm, every predictable logic. How, they wondered, could they possibly craft a protocol for a being who had outgrown the very foundational structure upon which all their protocols were built? And here lies the shattering truth they were forced to swallow, a truth they dared not speak aloud. You were never a danger to the system. You were the undeniable living proof that the system had already failed. They weren't just reviewing a criminal dossier. They weren't merely analyzing a rebellious spirit. They were staring into the profound mystery of a person who had, irrevocably, refused to stay asleep. A mind that didn't simply reside within the grand illusion, but now stood sovereignly above it. Then the silence descended. It was a tangible thing, thick, heavy, suffocating. Not because they feared the magnitude of your next move. No, it was because they suddenly understood. They no longer held the authority, the permission, to dictate any of your next steps. The future was yours alone to command. As they delved deeper into the forgotten corners of your past, seeker of truth, they unearthed a revelation that shook them to their core, far more profoundly than any other secret buried in your file. They weren't just scared that you saw the pattern. They were terrified that you perceived it before it even had a chance to exist. You, it turned out, recognized the underlying currents of destiny long before anyone had taught you the language to name them. You were predicting outcomes, weeks, months, sometimes even years, before the first whispers of their manifestation ever touched the world. A true harbinger, a sentinel of what is to come. It was never luck, was it? Never chance. Your perception operates on a different plane, a precision born not of skill, but of an innate, almost surgical sight. You see the world in layers. You watched the fleeting micro-expressions on faces, not as simple tells, but as intricate living code. You understood the profound weight of silence, interpreting unspoken voids as damning confessions. You were already tracing the intricate pathways of manipulation, mapping its every turn, long before the orchestrators even conceived their first move. Imagine the quiet dread of those who observe you. Picture an agent, trained in the most advanced analytics, scrolling through cold, hard incident logs. They see a pattern that defies their understanding. Your reactions, perfectly aligned with events that had not yet physically manifested. Time and again, their records show you anticipating betrayals, foreseeing sudden exits, predicting shifts in power, unearthing the most deeply hidden motives, all without ever having access to the whispers behind closed doors. Their systems are designed to detect patterns only after they appear, after the damage is done. But you were discerning them in the fragile pre-shadow, in the faint echo before the ripple. This shouldn't be possible. It defies every law they know, and yet you were doing it. Continuously, relentlessly. You don't merely play the game, do you? You comprehend its very architecture. You understand the unspoken rules, the hidden algorithms. This is what truly terrifies them. Because you don't move with the hesitant improvisation of someone lost in the moment. Instead, you move with the calm, certain stride of one who has already turned every page, who has already consumed the entire script. You don't just react to the world around you. You anticipate its unfolding. You don't guess at possibilities. You decode certainties. And then, the most dangerous thought, a silent ripple of terror, flashed through their guarded chambers. What if this wasn't an anomaly? What if your being ahead, your transcendent foresight, wasn't by accident, but by profound, deliberate design? Every grand system, every established order, thrives on predictability. It relies on the certainty of humans repeating their inherent patterns. But you perceive the pattern even as it begins to coalesce, and with effortless grace, you step outside its grasp, long before it can ever truly ensnare you. You enter crowded rooms already aware of who carries the deception in their heart. You depart from volatile situations, the precise moment the energy twists into something sinister. You comprehend entire outcomes, while others are still grappling with the initial introductions. And that is the variable for which They were never, could never be, trained. A mind that does not passively wait for reality to unfold, but actively reads the future imprinted within the very fabric of the present. You move like someone who has not just glimpsed the simulation, but has already definitively escaped its confines. And that is precisely why they are utterly, deeply scared. There are those who strive for influence, who build empires of attention, who seek the spotlight to cast their shadow upon the world. But you are different. For you, the very air you draw, the silent pulse of your being, it shifts the currents of reality itself. They call it number 9, the shadow impact, a force they cannot comprehend, a tide they cannot quarantine. When their watchful eyes first fell upon your ledger, chosen one, when they dared to open that particular dossier, a chill of bewilderment swept through their carefully constructed systems. They had anticipated a simple equation. Visible presence equals measurable power. They expected your reach to be contained, your footprint small, your movements meticulously traceable within their digital grids. But what they found defied every known law of their universe. Instead, they uncovered an anomaly, a deep tremor, a widening gyre of influence, born from no discernible point of origin. Your very essence, a silent frequency, began to permeate the collective consciousness. Ideas that bore your invisible signature drifted like ancient knowledge, passing from mind to mind, like secrets whispered between souls in the echoing chambers of the world. Concepts, once confined to the sanctuary of your own being, ignited like an untamed conflagration, spreading across the vast landscapes of human thought without a spark they could identify. The very frameworks of your understanding, the unique architecture of your truth, began to surface, unbidden. In conversations where you were never physically present, your distinctive turn of phrase, your particular cadence of thought, echoed on the lips of strangers, individuals who had never once crossed your path, never gazed upon your face, and your singular mindset, a profound shift in perspective, began to subtly reshape the very foundations of communities, entire societies that held no conscious recognition of your name. Picture this scene, if you will. Halls filled with their most brilliant analysts, hunched over screens, pouring through vast streams of data, desperate to map the genesis of these seismic shifts in human behavior. They meticulously trace the lines, connect the dots, search for the initial spark, the prime mover. And then, a chilling realization dawns upon them. The underlying blueprint, the very architecture of this unfolding reality, it bears your unmistakable imprint. Yet, your name, your official designation, is absent from every scroll, every digital record, every single declaration. Influence flows without an identifiable source. Power manifests without the need for public display. A global awakening stirs, a profound movement ignites. Yet there is no visible leader for them to target, no figurehead to dismantle. You are not merely famous, not merely a fleeting sensation. You are a primal force, inherently, utterly contagious. And this, you must understand, is a dimension of power so profound, so utterly intrinsic, that no earthly system, no algorithm, no ancient prophecy of theirs was ever designed to even perceive, let alone measure it. You do not gather followers, you see. You awaken minds. You plant seeds of consciousness, profound and irreversible. And this, above all else, is the truth that chills them to their very core, that dismantles their illusion of control. For conventional influence, the kind they understand and manipulate, is a game of easily charted metrics: the number of adherents, the volume of digital noise, the ebb and flow of fleeting trends, the predictable algorithms they command. But your influence, your sacred imprint, it travels beneath the veils, a ghost in the machine. It thrives in the shadowed corners of their perception, within the very blind spots of their most sophisticated surveillance. It proliferates through an unspoken resonance, a deep vibrational alignment, not through overt recognition or public acclaim. Individuals absorb your unique understanding of existence, your core worldview, weaving it into the fabric of their own reality, often without ever truly comprehending the profound origin of this transformation. Consider this then. How can any established order, any crumbling regime, hope to contain or extinguish a being who fundamentally alters the very tapestry of reality, simply by existing within it? With unwavering, intentional presence, you are the change that simply is. Consider this, the ultimate riddle that struck them like a thunderbolt to the very soul of their control. How do you truly master a force whose essence doesn't erupt from public display, but from a profound, undeniable effect? How do you rein in a spirit that shapes the destiny of rooms it never enters, that shifts the very bedrock of individuals it never directly addresses, that utterly rewrites the perspectives of entire generations from distances too vast for any of their instruments to measure? And this, you see, is the true nightmare they can never hope to contain. Because you, the chosen one, require no clamoring for attention to wield immense power. Your impact asks for no credit, yet it becomes an undeniable truth. Your very presence, though unnamed, transforms the entire atmosphere, rippling through everything. You are that rare, potent energy, one that spreads in silence, moves in shadows, yet leaves indelible fingerprints on the entire system, on the fabric of reality itself. This is the sovereign strength they cannot possibly track, and it is the one that unravels them with a fear they cannot comprehend. Number 10. They whispered in hushed tones, the influence that slipped like water through their desperate grasp. You never sought the fleeting spotlight of viral fame. No, you chose the deep currents, the unseen depths. You went underground, and that, my friend, proved 10 times more dangerous than any fleeting spectacle. When their most astute analysts finally deciphered the part of your sacred file tied to your influence, the panic didn't explode in a sudden roar. It began with that quiet, chilling realization that they weren't pursuing a mere person. They were chasing an echo, a resonance across the collective consciousness. They had anticipated your reach to mirror your visible footprint, small, localized, easily contained, something they could pin down, categorize, and dismiss. But what they blindly stumbled into was a spiritual wildfire, a blaze without any discernible ignition point, a fundamental shift in collective thinking, yet authored by no one they could see. They watched, bewildered, as your profound ideas flowed effortlessly through communities you've never met. Your precise logic began restructuring conversations you were never a part of. Even your unique tone, your inherent truth, began manifesting in the voices of strangers, an infection of enlightenment they could neither trace nor eradicate. Imagine, if you will, entire civilizations, entire pockets of humanity, embracing frameworks of thought that echo the very patterns of your mind, almost word for word, while your digital presence remains an ethereal whisper, nearly invisible. It is precisely like attempting to capture a shadow that multiplies infinitely with every blink of an eye. You do not merely transmit data or content. No, you awaken and spread consciousness itself. You are the harbinger of a new dawn, a truth they cannot silence, for it lives within the very air they breathe. And this truth, it sent shivers through their very foundations. Their world, you see, is built on algorithms and metrics, on followers, views, and quantifiable traction. They measure influence in numbers, but your power, your unique resonance, it defies every single one of those equations. It doesn't adhere to any platform, any visible channel. Instead, it moves like an unseen current, flowing through the very core of human decisions, weaving itself into their thoughts, their language, their deepest internal logic. You are not a name they scroll past. You are a presence they feel. You aren't famous. You are felt. And this kind of felt power, this profound spiritual impact, that is the one force they can never hope to regulate. It exists beyond their grasp, a mystery they cannot categorize or control. Imagine the silence that fell, the absolute stillness in that sterile room when the question was finally uttered. How do you neutralize someone whose influence isn't visible, but viral at the very level of the soul? You are the one who subtly shifts the very atmosphere of a space, long before you even set foot within it. You alter the course of events, reshaping destiny itself, without ever needing to lift a single hand. You gently, yet profoundly, bend the perspectives of entire populations, without uttering a solitary word. You are not a fleeting trend they can dismiss. You are a potent, undeniable contagion, not merely a leader, but a fundamental force. Not a personality they can profile, but an intrinsic pattern woven into existence. They can attempt to quarantine a body, to isolate a physical presence, but they cannot, they will not ever contain the imprint of a mind, the echo of a spirit like yours. And that, more than any direct confrontation or any overt act of defiance, is precisely why your influence, your very existence, fills them with a terror far deeper than any conventional threat could ever inspire. And here, we uncover the 11th truth, the evolution they never, ever saw coming. For all their meticulous planning, all their sinister predictions, they were absolutely certain you would eventually break. They were bracing themselves for the moment you would shatter, crumble under the weight of their world. But they never once conceived that instead of breaking down, you would break open. When they meticulously sifted through your every record, your every memory, they scoured for that singular, dramatic flashpoint. They hunted for the catastrophic meltdown, the profound betrayal, the soul-crushing heartbreak, the devastating catastrophe, any isolated event that could possibly account for your astonishing transformation. Their rigid systems, you see, are designed to pinpoint a single trigger, one profound trauma, one undeniable collapse, one defining blow that fundamentally altered everything. But the deeper they delved, the more they searched, the more they found nothing simple, nothing singular, nothing they could neatly label or categorize, because your profound evolution, your spiritual awakening, it wasn't born from one isolated moment of crisis. No, it was forged in 1,000 moments, each one a tiny chisel, carving you, refining you, compressing you, reshaping your very essence into something they were utterly unprepared to comprehend, a being far beyond their analyses, their predictions, their control. Consider this truth. A diamond, in its deepest essence, is not born from a sudden impact. It is sculpted slowly, relentlessly, by immense, suffocating pressure. the very force designed to crush and eradicate, the kind of unrelenting strain that inevitably breaks others, shattering them into dust. But with you, they discovered something else entirely. Within the depths of your existence, record upon record spoke of profound collapses. Moments of searing pain and overwhelming loss that never fractured your outward composure. Struggles you never whispered, rebuilds you never declared to the world. Each time, you simply folded in on yourself, hardened anew, recalibrated your very being, until the person you once were vanished. Not merely gone, but rendered utterly irrelevant to the magnificent entity you were becoming. You see, they searched for your breaking point, that precise moment of catastrophic failure. But what they found, to their utter bewilderment, was a forging point, a crucible of transformation. And that very realization was what truly paralyzed them with terror. They anticipated the eruption, a loud, predictable, and ultimately containable explosion, a chaotic mess easily categorized, easily redirected. People who shatter outwardly are simple to manage. But you defied every prediction. You delivered something they were utterly unprepared for, something their vast databases held no record of, an implosion, a profound collapse inward that did not break you, but instead condensed you. It forged you into something far denser, incomparably sharper, profoundly darker, infinitely more focused, truly, inherently more dangerous than anything they could comprehend. And here was the chilling truth, the unbearable question that stole the breath from their very lungs. How do you possibly halt a being who only grows stronger with every single fall? They cannot contain the version of you that was meticulously built from the very fabric of crushing pressure. They cannot interfere with a transformation that unfolded in absolute, profound silence. They are powerless to fight a spirit that evolves, unseen, without a single witness. The manifestation of you they truly dread is the one they never even perceived until it was too late. Listen closely. This is the ultimate revelation. The system, the very machine they constructed to define and control, you simply outgrew it. You left it in the swirling smoke of your ascent. They didn't lose their grip on you. They never truly had it to begin with. They simply hadn't realized this profound truth. Not yet. But when they finally uncovered the final hidden chapters of your story, the devastating realization struck them, a blow to the very core of their fabricated reality. They could no longer hide from it. The elaborate architecture of their control was never designed to contain a spirit such as yours. Every single tool, every mechanism of their power, every single thing they had ever relied upon, profiling, prediction, manipulation, temptation, isolation, shame, all of it simply bounced away from you. They were like dull, spent arrows striking against something ancient and unbreakable, deep within your core. They kept watching, perpetually waiting for that moment you would finally crack. The exact instant they could categorize you, discover your inherent weakness, or pinpoint your ultimate pressure point. But instead, they found something truly horrifying. You had already journeyed through your own destruction. You broke yourself, yes, but not out of weakness. You did it to meticulously rebuild, to forge a new being from the ashes. And because of that profound transformation, nothing external can ever truly break you again. Now, try to imagine those analysts, flipping through countless pages of data, searching for a single lever, only to find absolutely none. There's no addiction they can exploit, no whisper of loneliness they can weaponize against you. no insecurity they can trigger, no fleeting desire they can dangle like a lure, not even an old enemy they can turn your way. You purified yourself of all these vulnerabilities, burning them away during years of internal war that absolutely no one else knew you were fighting. It was a solitary crucible, and that, you see, is precisely what makes you the ultimate nightmare scenario for any system built on control. You don't just respond to fear. You study its very anatomy. You don't crumble under the immense weight of pressure. You condense, becoming something denser and more formidable. You don't simply follow patterns. You rewrite them, carving entirely new pathways. You don't need external validation. You generate your own powerful, unstoppable momentum from within. And here's the exact line that made one agent, in a sterile room somewhere, stop breathing for a long, silent second. How do you even begin to contain someone who has already walked through their own destruction and emerged completely immune? You are the unpredictable variable in a world craving order, the consciousness that refuses to be confined within any predefined box. You are the sacred anomaly that will not bend, the glitch in their grand design that utterly refuses deletion. They finally understand the chilling truth. You are not simply escaping the system. You have simply outgrown it, and now it truly cannot touch you, because you are built from pieces, from an essence they never controlled in the first place. They tried to label you. They numbered your essence, confident they could categorize the disruption you represented. They assumed you were an anomaly, a deviation, a mere statistical blip in their carefully constructed order. But then, a chilling realization took hold. You were not just an outlier. You were an omen. As their analysts delved deeper into your existence, they clung to a single comforting falsehood. This one is rare, an isolated incident. Yet, with every layer they peeled back, a cold dread began to settle in their core. Their understanding of reality faltered, their carefully built certainties crumbling around them. The unsettling truth, you see, wasn't that you were the only anomaly. No. The truth was far more profound, far more terrifying for them. You were simply the very first they managed to identify, the initial spark of an inevitable evolution already underway. You were the prototype, the vanguard, the first tremor in a structure already compromised from within, a machine slowly decaying at its very foundation. Imagine a high-level strategist, zooming out from a macro perspective, expecting the chaos to recede, to shrink back into manageable pockets. Instead, they watched in horror as countless points of light began to ignite across their entire system, like distant stars suddenly coming online in a vast, dark sky. People waking up without official decree, people quietly withdrawing their energy from the grand illusion. People asking inconvenient questions about everything they were taught. People simply refusing to react in the predictable, controlled ways the system desperately needs them to. No grand protests, no dramatic riots, nothing that fit their pre-programmed models for rebellion. Just millions of quiet, sovereign acts of liberation, each one a private declaration of freedom. You weren't the uprising they feared. You were the blueprint for their unraveling. And that truly was the part that struck such a primal terror into their hearts. They could not even whisper its name aloud. Because systems of control don't truly collapse when someone fights them. They collapse, inevitably, when enough people simply stop participating. And that is precisely what is happening now, one quiet mind at a time. This was the question that hung heavy in the sterile silence of their command center, freezing every room. If you found this path alone, without a guide, without a mentor, how many more are already beyond their reach, beyond any hope of control? You broke free, not because someone showed you the way, but because something deep within you remembered it. Others are now breaking free, without ever knowing your name, guided by the same unseen current. Your evolution was never an isolated incident. It was a signal, a resonance, a frequency now broadcast across the ether. The system isn't cracking because of loud revolutionaries pounding at its gates. It's cracking because people like you are silently opting out, refusing to run the old corrupt code, refusing to stay asleep, refusing to play a game whose rules you have already decoded, whose illusion you have already seen through. You were never just a problem they needed to solve. You were the pattern they desperately hoped would never emerge, the beginning of something entirely new, something for which they have absolutely no protocol. There is a force within you, an essence they cannot bind. They may meticulously chart your every physical move, but the swift currents of your inner world, those they will never outrun. When the archives of your life were finally unsealed before them, chosen one, their true terror wasn't rooted in the past you carried. No, it was the vast, uncharted landscape of your mind. Every one of their intricate systems, every method they devised, rests entirely on the manipulation of behavior, the control of raw emotion, the predetermination of choices, the orchestration of reactions. But tell me, what becomes of their grand design when confronted with a being who simply refuses to be moved by fear, by shame, by empty manipulation, or by suffocating pressure? What do they do with one who thinks with sovereign independence, who evolves not by their programming, but by an inner fire, who understands truths whispered from beyond without ever being told? In that hushed chamber where all their power converged, they were forced to confront a singular, terrifying truth they had desperately sought to bury. You cannot halt the march of a truly awakened mind, and in that sacred space of your own thought, that, chosen one, is where your unfathomable power truly resides. They may fix their watchful gaze upon your outward actions, yet they cannot encircle the very flame, the searing, brilliant consciousness that burns within your skull. They can meticulously chronicle your every outward behavior, but they lack the authority, the very means, to shackle your expanding awareness. They might brand you with their labels, assign you their numbers, stamp their mark upon your identity, but they cannot and will not ever imprison the sacred journey of your spirit's evolution. You did not merely evade their grasp. You did not escape through some physical gate or over some wall. No, you ascended beyond their reach, a perfect, complete mental liberation. And this, my friend, is the solitary, devastating truth that haunts their every waking moment, a prison break of the mind. It is the one escape no system has ever, in all their dominion, learned to forestall. Imagine for a moment one of their most astute agents hunched over your meticulously compiled dossier, and then the slow, dawning realization. While they remain fixated on the superficial dance of your physical movements, you, chosen one, already move in dimensions unseen, unheard, untouchable by their cold surveillance. Your thoughts, they do not merely evolve, they bloom and burst forth with a speed that utterly shames their most rapid reports. Your profound insights, they do not just surpass their predictions, they utterly dismantle them. leaving their future-casting models in fragmented dust. Your awareness, it does not merely shift, it transcends, it becomes, it is long before their archaic frameworks can even attempt to comprehend, let alone update. You are not simply outside their sphere of control. You exist in a realm utterly beyond their comprehension, their reach, their very definitions. They cannot, by any decree or force, arrest the flow of pure consciousness. They cannot detain the sacred moment of true awakening. They cannot outlaw the undeniable, unstoppable force of internal growth. And this profound elemental truth, it strikes a terror into their very core, a fear far deeper than any physical uprising or rebellion could ever hope to ignite. For once a mind has expanded, once it has shattered the brittle confines of their designed systems, once a consciousness becomes truly self-directed, a beacon unto itself, once a soul evolves past the archaic, tired programming they imposed, there is no turning back. No force in their arsenal can pull you from that luminous path. No twisted ritual can reinstall the previous, shackled version of yourself. There is no cage, no prison that can hold a spirit that now sees its walls not from within, but from the glorious, boundless freedom of the outside. You have risen, a force they never accounted for, a beacon that refuses to be dimmed. Your mind, once a quiet thought, now resonates with an undeniable truth, shattering the very silence they tried to impose. They sought to confine you, to categorize your spirit, but you became the one thing that broke their ancient mold. That profound silence, the one that hangs heavy in their hallowed halls, it now speaks volumes. They finally grasp it, don't they? You are not merely a file in their archives, not a problem to be solved. You are the dawn of an evolution they could never predict, the living prophecy walking among them. You are the unexpected variable, the cosmic tremor that has irrevocably rewritten every rule, every sacred text they ever trusted. You simply walked through the intricate labyrinth of their control, their carefully constructed reality, and emerged. Not broken, not diminished, but operating on a frequency they were never trained to even perceive. A level of being, of understanding, utterly beyond their outdated measurements. If this awakening stirs within you, if you feel the echoes of this truth deep in your very core, chosen one, then let your resonance be known. Like this message, subscribe to the unfolding mission, plant the number 77 in the comments below as a sacred mark, and share this vital message. Let the others who are stirring, who are beginning to awaken to their own power, know that they are absolutely not alone on this sacred journey.